My brother kicked me out of his wedding party over my party habits, so I took back the venue. Now, they're begging. I'm a 37-year-old male with a younger brother, Tom, who's 26. He's getting married in 3 months. A year ago, when he and his fiancée were planning their wedding, they were struggling to find an affordable venue. I own a vacation property with a large yard that's been used for a couple of small weddings before, so I offered it to him as a wedding venue. My only condition was that I wanted to be part of the wedding party, which he agreed to. Everything seemed fine. Last week, Tom and I got into a small argument. It really wasn't a big deal, but a couple of days later, he texted me and said he and his fiancée decided to downsize their wedding party, and I was no longer going to be a groomsman. I was shocked because I thought this was set in stone a year ago. I called him to ask what was going on, and he said it wasn't personal. They just wanted to keep things small and intimate and didn't feel they needed me in the wedding party. I was pretty hurt but didn't say anything at the time. Then it occurred to me, if I'm not important enough to be in his wedding party, why should I host the wedding at my place? So, I called him again and told him that since I wasn't going to be part of the wedding, they'd need to find another venue. Now, Tom and his fiancée are furious. They say they can't afford another venue at this point, and that I'm ruining their big day. My parents are also upset and say I should just let it go and still host the wedding. I feel like I was doing them a huge favor, and they essentially uninvited me from being part of the most important day of their lives. I don't think I'm wrong to retract my offer, but now everyone's making me feel guilty. So, am I the idiot for canceling the venue? This blew up way more than I thought it would. I checked my messages after work today, and holy crap. To answer a few questions I'm seeing repeatedly. 1. Why did I need to offer to loan out my vacation house to be in the wedding? This is repeating one of my comments. My brother and I have had a little bit of a rocky relationship most of his life. Our age difference has always been an awkward amount, and I think he's jealous of my success in life, too. He's done okay, but I've climbed the corporate ladder pretty quickly in finance. I think a lot of girls he's dated have had crushes on me, being his older brother and the more successful one, and that bothers him. He picks small things to get mad at me about because of his jealousy, and I felt like if I made it a condition of lending out my place, he would let me be in his wedding. 2. What did you get into an argument about? He got upset at me because he thinks I don't do enough with our parents, but I travel for my job, so it's harder for me to be there in person. I also help them out financially, which he never considers as helping out. They haven't saved as much as they probably should and are getting closer to retirement. So I help them out with some bills so they can put more in their 401k accounts instead. But I guess that isn't enough. He always finds something to say I'm doing wrong. 3. Are you still invited to the wedding? Technically, he only said I'm not in the wedding party, but it feels like such a slap in the face at this point. It definitely feels like he doesn't want me there. I'll try to talk to him again to see what the real issue is, because downsizing seems like being yes to me. Update. I was having a hard time believing my brother when he told me they were downsizing the wedding party just to make it more intimate. But that's all he kept saying when I would ask for the real reason. In all honesty, my brother and I aren't that close, which I'm sure is obvious from my last post. After my emotions settled down a bit, I told my brother I wanted to talk to him. He wasn't responding to me, so I said I wanted to talk to him about potentially letting them still use my vacation house. Not totally the truth, but it seemed like a good way to get him to talk. He finally responded but said I couldn't come over. He would only meet me somewhere public, which seemed weird. We ended up meeting at a bar late last night that I like near my place. I straight up just asked him why he was really kicking me out of his wedding. I would only consider letting them use my vacation house if he told me the truth. He was getting pretty fidgety and looking away from me, and finally told me the truth. Apparently, his fiancée heard that I may do a bit of substance here and there for fun, and she told him that she didn't want to see me in her wedding. He said he actually kind of agreed with her and was disappointed in what I was doing. I told him if I'm too much of a scene head to be there, then they really shouldn't want to use a scene head's house for their wedding, and I left. I don't really see how it impacts them what I do in my free time, but I really don't care to be there now if that's what they think of me. I haven't said a word to him since then, but I'm guessing I won't be hearing from him again soon. Edit to answer some consistent questions and comments. 1. Oh, you must be a substance addict. I do substances, maybe a handful of times a year. recreationally with some people that I party with. Obviously, this gossip traveled through the grapevine where circles overlapped and got to them somehow. I wasn't discovered because I'm an addict like some have said. It's more common than you think. You'd be surprised who does it. 2. You must have a substance problem for them to react that way about it. My brother's fiancée comes from a very religious and conservative family. They think anyone that does hard substances must be a degenerate and is going to hell. That's the funny part about her calling me a C-head. SE is whack. She clearly doesn't understand Southeast is different, but I'm not going to go on a mission to educate her. It would be wasted effort on my part. You can be successful in life and recreationally use substances. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Honestly, pretty much anyone I know that does SE has plenty of money and a great job, or they're married to someone rich or inherited money. Final comments. Well, after scrolling through a decent amount of comments, I've come to the conclusion that I'm obviously a terrible douchebag with an enormous substance problem that only thinks about myself and is extremely conceited. Some parts of that may be true, but I do care about my family and try to help my parents in the way that I know how. For those of you that are familiar with Fight Club, I am a single-serving friend kind of person. I don't really get close with many people, and I have a hard time staying in one place. That's why I have a job where I need to travel all the time. I like the variety and the challenge of it. Settling down, having kids, all that makes me super uncomfortable. Obviously, I'd be a terrible father, so there's no way I'll have kids. Snip snip. My brother is a settle-down kind of guy, and thinking about it, that's probably why he doesn't like me. I wanted to be a groomsman for him because I wanted to be a part of something in his life, but in a capacity I can handle. One last note. I've got awesome parents that love me for who I am, and they know I love them even if I'm not around a ton. They worked super hard to raise us and give us everything we needed when they came from a poor background. I help them how I know I can. Not everyone shows they care in the same way you do. So chill and don't think I'm an ass because my way of caring is mostly financial. Peace out, friends. Story 2. I used to work as a driver for a freight company. We used to handle awkward-sized items that no other couriers would touch. We delivered everything from coffins to tractor parts. We also had to collect things from our customers for delivery the next day. This company had a mixture of contractors and permanent drivers. I was a relief driver, and I knew most of the routes, so I covered holidays or sickness. The management of the depot consisted of a delivery manager and a collection manager. These two people didn't see eye to eye, and sometimes getting the stuff delivered conflicted with getting stuff collected. Their targets reflected failures in a bad way. This particular day, I had to cover a contractor's route. I didn't know the route, so as we had to load our trucks, this took a little longer than usual. I had around 45 deliveries that day, which is high for this predominantly rural route. I asked my manager, the delivery manager, if he knew the route. He replied that he did and ordered my route for me, so I was good to go, albeit a bit late. I did say that with the volume I had, I may struggle, and I asked him to keep an eye out for me. He said okay. I got to near midday and realized that I wasn't going to be able to complete all the deliveries, and the collections wouldn't get done either. I also noted that one of the collections was off-route, and the contractor had a vehicle in that area anyway. I called in and spoke to my manager, delivery, and told him he had a choice of collections or deliveries. I also asked why the contractor couldn't cover the off-route collection. I was told to call back later, and he'd see if he could sort something out. He also said that the off-route collection would have to be done too. I called back later and asked for help again. He said there was no help available, so I gave him the option of deliveries or collections, as there wasn't time to do both. I will get to the time a bit later. He categorically said both had to be done. The delivery manager went home, so I called in again and got the collection manager. She reiterated that there was no help at all, so either I failed the deliveries or failed the collections. If that happened, I'd have been hauled into the office the next day. So, see you malicious compliance. I called into one of the collections and asked what time they closed. 6:30 p.m., they said. So, I said I'd be back later. I carried on with the deliveries, which took me further away from that collection. At the appropriate time, I stopped delivering and drove to the collection. I collected 2 small parcels, that was all. Then, I drove back to where I had stopped and carried on delivering. This cost me about an hour. I finished my last delivery at 7:15 p.m. I had a 45-minute drive back to my yard. As I was leaving the round, I got a frantic call from the collection manager. She was wondering where I was. I told her what had happened and told her that I'd asked for help 4 times and was told I had to do everything allocated. So, I did, and it wasn't my fault that it happened like this. Here's where the trouble really started. The company's trunking system is a fluid one. It depends on trucks leaving the depot at a certain time. For our depot, the cutoff time is 7:30 p.m. I wheeled in just after 8 p.m. There were 15 pissed-off guys on overtime waiting for me to turn up and an articulated truck waiting for these 2 parcels. This wait caused the whole trunking system to be late the next day. My routing was discussed when I got back, as it was questionable at best. When I told the collections manager that it was the delivery manager that organized it, there were angry emails between the delivery and collection managers. And I would imagine that the logistics team would have demanded an explanation too. Arses were definitely kicked the next day. No one said a word. I wasn't on that route, and going forward, well, for a little while, they either helped when I asked or didn't get me to do as much. Also, as I had exceeded legal driving time, they had to make sure I went home early for a few days. So, a bit of a win there. The biggest trouble these guys had was that they always assumed the drivers were after an easy day. Even when presented with the evidence, they assumed that you were still trying to fly this time. It bit them badly. At another company, they were continually giving us all more than we could deliver. This was simply to get the freight out of the yard. We all brought stuff back in the morning. You would collect your paperwork, and the guys in the office would badmouth the guys that brought stuff back, saying things like they needed firing. You would walk out and think, I brought more back. What are they saying about me? So one day, I thought I would deliver everything they gave me. At 9 p.m., I got a call that went like this: "Office, where are you?" Me, 40 miles away, and I have 4 more left. "Office, stop what you are doing right now and get your ass back to the yard. Do you know what the time is?" Me, yes, but I have 4 more to do. "Office, get back here now." It didn't get me any less stuff to do, but I did have an easier next day, though, and it at least gave them something relevant to comment about. So, if you hadn't used an hour backtracking, you could have completed both the deliveries and collections and been back by 7 p.m. That seems to contradict your earlier point about being unable to complete everything in time. Also, you didn't say explicitly, but was the backtracking specified in the route you were given? So following that was the main malicious compliance bit. If I hadn't got the collection at all, then yes, I could have completed my deliveries and saved an hour. As drivers are cut off time to return to the depot was 6:30 p.m., I would still have returned just after 7 p.m. When I arrived at the collection, the goods were not ready, which is why I had to return the route. My manager's delivery did for me took me away from the collection and into the deep countryside. There wouldn't be time to return to the collection after completing the deliveries anyway, even though it was closing at 6:30 p.m. One major flaw in the routing was that the manager's delivery didn't care about the collections as they had no effect on his performance. So, he didn't schedule the clow into the plan. It was a case of, okay, make whatever you want. The thing to bear in mind, though, is that the route planning involved cutting up sheets with 8 jobs on and manually ordering them. As you complete a job, you throw away the ticket. Satnavs are great, but they struggle massively with routes of this size. Also, mine didn't have the ability to plug in a time for the collection either, hence asking my manager in the first place. Had we an Amazon DPD-style routing system, it would have been clear as day that this route would have been impossible from the start. I will say, though, was this a case of me deliberately being an RS? Well, it didn't start like that, but absolutely. We're an industry that values product over people. Sometimes, you have to be maliciously compliant to make your point. Story 3 happened a few years ago, so details are a bit fuzzy, and chat is paraphrased. I was T2 tech support for a company that handles my country's largest ISP's entire professional email services, all its DNS management services, and a large portion of its website building and web hosting services. This company is tiny, minute, not even a blip on the radar, but has power that I will likely never again hold at my fingertips. One day, A ticket comes in from the ISP. A big client company is moving away from our proprietary email services and into Microsoft 365 or some such equivalent change. This usually meant I got to help the client through the process of changing DNS records, migrating inboxes, or just backing up emails. And even actually setting up some stuff on the Microsoft side, technically not my job, but the ISP's T1 tech support was woefully untrained for anything even remotely technical and terribly unprepared for most things merely commercial. My company was awesome and treated me right. So ticket by SP client is moving from Service X to Service Y. Please remove their subscription from the database me. There seems to be some sort of mistake, which was very common. We remove them from there once the new service is set up and running. Otherwise, it will delete everything in their subscript package, including all email storage, DNS records, and website. You likely want to change their subscription to not include email services but keep the rest, since your Microsoft subscription doesn't include DNS and web hosting management. And even that change only after they have their new email service set up. ISP Yada, confirm remove their subscription. Me, are you absolutely sure this process is not recoverable? All their emails, DNS records, and entire website, including the database, will be permanently deleted. ISP request has been submitted. Remove subscription at this point. It's been a couple of days since the first ticket, so I call my boss over. He's an absolutely wonderful guy and extremely intelligent, and tell him what they're asking me to do. Boss, all right. Let's show them they pay us because we know things and they don't. Don't delete the subscription, but suspend all the services that would be affected. Keep those tickets at hand and expect a phone call. If they call you, tell them to talk to me. God, they felt good. I felt bad for the client because their entire company basically shut down for an afternoon, but when they called my work phone directly from ISP, uncommon, usually just for emergencies, and the nice lady asked me what had happened with the client in that tone that says, I'm doing my best to hear all sides before making a decision, but I am freaking the hell out right now. And I directed her to the tickets where I very clearly stated what would happen if I did what they told me to, and then told her to call the boss. I felt so vindicated. The boss later told me to let them sweat for a couple of hours because the process should have been unrecoverable, and then turn the services back on. ISP was yet again absolutely thrilled with us, and my name kept coming up even more often as the person that solves things. Some comments the good old scream test never actually delete anything, just shut it down or disable it first. Wait to see if anyone screams, then turn it back on. I eventually learned the trick, but there weren't too many situations like this one. If, however, they asked me to do stupid stuff that only affected them and not their clients, I usually let the full weight of their decision to not train their reps properly fall on their heads. Love it, just giving them a little taste of what happens when you're not hindered in any way by any knowledge or common sense when pushing a ticket through. Great boss man, as well. He reminds me of our old department head. We once had a server crash, or so we got told at work, and everybody got greeted with an empty inbox and a set up your account window. Everybody freaked out, and it got called by everybody. Turns out they were told to remove a server or something for the plumber. They told management in writing that that was a bad idea and not to spring that on them at a Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. Management told them to just do it. So Monday at 6:30, they did, after ensuring nothing would get lost or anything and clearing it with the headache guy. They even waited until the plumber was finished to set everything back up. It was pure pandemonium for 3 hours, and they loved every second of it. It had got called into a meeting about his failing department, but he tore everybody a new one in there. You don't give crap to a guy just over a year away from his pension that also has the entire communication between his department and management about this fuck-up printed out. So far, they've never not listened to the IT guys if they raise concerns over a ticket. Yeah, the whole listen to the IT guys thing generally worked, but that ISP is so enormous, and their tech support reps are so outrageously untrained for pretty much anything. Seriously. I had a lot of tickets asking us how much their services cost. For example, not even related stuff. Sometimes the tickets that came through came from someone who didn't really know that they should really listen to us when we said what they should be doing. It's a really weird situation.